Hello, today I'm going to talk about what is a brand, and I'm going to dig deeper into the definition of the brand and what is actually a brand, what makes it different from a person, from a product, or a service. So, brands come in all shapes and sizes, so everywhere you look, you're surrounded by brands. Even in your own house, you can look around and you can see personal brands like you can see here in my bag. All kinds of writers, painters, everybody is a brand, including you. You are a brand. And all of the products that you have in the house, at work, on the street, when you just walk around, you can see brands everywhere. And brands, you can find them on the internet, where you have absolutely no control to what kind of brands are presenting to you. So, what is the difference between a simple product and a brand? Is actually the association that the customer makes in his own mind. Just think of your favorite perfume. It's basically just water with a certain kind of scent, but the way you associate that perfume with certain memories, with beautiful events in your life, or a love relationship, this is what makes it special, and you gave it a certain meaning. So branding is the same thing. It is the kind of association that the customer makes in his own mind with the qualities and perception of that product or service. To go to a very, very short definition of brands, we are looking at people, products, or services which bring an added value, but for a more complicated and a very complex definition, we're going to dig deeper into the Oxford Dictionary of Marketing, which says that brands are a combination of attributes that give a company, organization, product, service, concept, or even an individual a distinctive identity and value relative to its competitors, its advocates, its stakeholders, and its customers. The attributes that make a brand are both tangible and intangible. So we are talking about a name, a visual logo, a trademark, products, services, people, a personality, reputation, brand loyalty, mental associations, culture, and inherent values, which together create a memorable, reassuring, and relevant brand image in the eye and in the mind of the beholder. So this last thing is very important, and I would like you to remember this one. Brands are in the mind and in the eyes of the beholder, just like beauty. So it is that mental association which the customer makes with the product, person, or service. As you can see, the fight is the battle actually is carried for number one place in the mind of the beholder, of course, and in the eyesight. When building a brand, you have to think like a war strategy, because you're actually going to an economic war to win money. And you have to make sure that all the foundation that you are building upon, your strategy to go to war, is very safe, is very healthy, and is solid. So you want to construct a brand that is different and that has a very solid foundation. And we are going to make a general presentation through what makes a brand become successful, which is equivalent to financial success. I like very much this analogy with a war, because yes, we are talking about a war scene, but it's a very elegant one, and marketing is a domain which uses all kinds of elements of sociology, of psychology, of economics, of accountability, of arts, of linguistic, and it's a beautiful mashup of all of those things, which together can be used in a very unique and personalized way for each brand in part, to create a strategy to win the first place in the mind and in the eyes of the beholder. So the process of branding, to go from zero to hero, from a concept to an actual product or service, or to become a very popular person in your field of speciality, is the process through which the manufacturers, the retailers, the service, or the person help customers to differentiate between a variety of similar offerings. So differentiate is the key word in here. How do you set yourself apart from the rest of the competition? Because when you want to make a brand, you want to stand out. You want to come with something different than what is present on the market, on the shelves of the supermarkets, or from the other specialists in your field. And you have to find out exactly what is your sweet spot and what makes you different from anybody else in the industry. So what is the secret to successful brands? For successful brands, it's actually the achieved and the continued association that the customer makes in his own mind when thinking of you, when giving your money to you. So it's the way the customer perceives you, and you reinforce that perception, which determines him to give you his time, attention, and money. How can you become successful as a brand? Well, first of all, through communication. Communication is the basis of successful branding. And through communication, you basically create a strong, a positive, and long-lasting impression of your brand. And of course, delivering the promise that you are making. Your product is functional, solves a problem. Basically, products or services solve a problem for customers. So is your brand fulfilling your promise? Then you are achieving a continual association in the mind and in the eye of the beholder. When starting a brand, the name is a very important aspect of all the process, because you will help the customer to make association in his mind regarding the price that you have, the performance, the positioning, and all of the qualities and attributes that differentiate you from the rest of the competitors in the same category. So it usually takes me about a month every time I make a project, and the process of choosing a name is a very special one to me. Is the creation of the name of the brand, which is extremely dear to my heart, and I love the creativity in it, although it is quite tormenting at times, but it is really gratifying in the end when I managed to to get the idea and name which is absolutely perfect for that brand. It has to be relevant, and it has to make it stand out from the crowd. There are certain rules when choosing a name for a brand. It has to be very short, it has to be memorable, it can refer to different functions like taste, durability, maybe even price, the value, the added value, or just a simple name that you prefer which has a lot of significance for you, and you want to build an empire around that name that will remain as a legacy to the future generations. So it has to be memorable. This is the first rule, and of course you will have a lot of trials and errors because you will think of different names, and you have to research online to see whether your competitors are using that same name in their description, or is it taken from somebody else. So you have to research also other brands which have the same name, other domains, because after you make the brand you have to buy the domain, and it's quite tricky. That's why it takes a month, because I have to research all the domains to see what kind of products or services are being sold on those kind of websites which have similar name with what I came up with. So the process of naming actually is a very simple one. When your customer says your name, he thinks of your attributes that differentiate you and position you apart from your competition. So it's a second, and in that second, when your customer says that name, he actually says everything about the price, the positioning, the location, the performance, and the quality. So it is extremely important, and this is how you create long-lasting brands through, first of all, through memorable names and lasting and achieved impression of the brand. The promotion of the brand is done differently for different kinds of sectors. You will do different promotion and communication for products, different communication for services, and different kind of promotion for persons, for personal brands. But we'll look at fast-moving goods sector, the kind of products that you find in the supermarkets. And for example, you can think of foods, of beverages, of detergents, of personal care products, where the communication is done, first of all, through visual packaging, a very lasting impression, because from all of the offerings on the shelf, where the client is presented like tens of options with products from the same category, the same deodorant, for example, your product has to stand out, first of all, through packaging, through logo, through colors, and maybe through messaging on the product with the attributes of the strong attributes of your product. And also the communication until the customer reaches the shelf has to know. So you have to create brand awareness of your product, and the customer has to already hear about you in the newspapers, online, on media, recommendations from friends, and the kind of communication that you do for fast-moving goods products is different. It appeals to the basic needs from the pyramid of human needs, and it appeals to satisfying, resolving that problem. But you can also use a kind of communication that appeals to emotions. So, for example, when you think of Dove, you think of the commercials with diversity of women. It's basically a soap, but Dove took that and took it to a very emotional and added value campaign, which is a study case that deserves a special episode. So you can see here, satisfying the basic need from the pyramid, and also appealing to emotions. But you cannot do the same kind of promotion like Coca-Cola does, okay? So you cannot do the same thing for pharmaceutical products, for medicine products. You will not focus so much on the packaging, but the communication has to be done very rational, because a person, when they need a medicine, they will use the best in the field, the best product that will solve their problem. So the communication and the packaging has to be different from Coca-Cola or Dove, let's say. But the communication will be done differently in real estate sector, where a successful campaign for selling real estate will be done through the use of imagery and videos. So the videos and the photographs have to be extremely powerful, and they have to be done in a certain way so that the customer can relate to the idea of home. Those pictures have to wake the feeling that, oh, this looks like home. So extremely strong, powerful imagery. So we have seen that branding is about setting yourself apart from the rest of the competition, and you do this through the strategy of communication. So as in real estate, we are talking about positioning, because the positioning of the property is extremely important. The same thing applies in branding. Positioning. why positioning is so important, because the customer not only has to recognize the brand visually from all of the offerings. Remember the fast-moving goods sector, 20 deodorants in the shopping mall, in the supermarket, but also has to understand the brand. So they when they look at a brand, they have to understand the values and attributes of a brand. And how can you do this understanding? Well, first of all, through communication, and you want to build a relationship with the consumer, with a customer or potential customer. And how can you do that? Well, besides the transaction that happens between you, there's a big iceberg. So the transaction is just the tip of the iceberg, but all the company, all the activities done in order to make that transaction is done through a successful branding communication campaign, and by engaging with the customer. So you want to reach not only the mind but the heart of the customer, and this is where psychology kicks in. And you have to make a promise that you will give him content that is added value to his life. So let's take, for example, as we talked before, Dove. Dove really wanted to target all types of women, all types of consumers from the markets, because they realize that beauty is not perfection. Beauty comes in all shapes and sizes, and women are so complex and so different that you cannot just only address one kind of personality and one kind of beauty. You cannot just put the perfection of the human body, because very few women will resonate with that. So they made a beautiful campaign, and they also wanted to see the reactions of the consumers, and they wanted them in the campaign. So as you can see in the pictures, they used the pictures, the real persons, the real consumers who also wanted to engage and to participate in the successful campaign of the brand. So it was a kickstart for the company, and I also used this campaign as a case study for my paper. When I studied digital marketing, I was fascinated by the way they engage with the consumers, and the very emotional part of all the campaign. And hey, we're just talking about a soap, but the movement that they created around the product is absolutely fascinating. So we are talking about brand performance when the promise that the brand makes is fulfilled, and actually what is in the interest of the customer. The customer only needs the problem to be solved, but brands realize that you can do more than that. You can create a relationship. So you want to keep this relationship going, and it's not just a one-way relationship. It's now a communication between the brands and the customers. And since the online presence of the brands and social media, the voice of the customer is extremely strong and full of opinions and full of preferences. And brands have started to pay very, very close attention to what their customer need. Also, social media and internet is an excellent tool for gathering data about preferences of the customers in order to develop better products, better communication campaigns, and better engagement. So, as a summary of what is a brand, brand is the added value that a product, a person, or a service brings to the world. And how can you do that? You do that through communication. First of all, by promising that you will solve a problem, by positioning yourself correctly towards your competition in the market, and then through the performance by fulfilling your promise. So as you can see in the picture, this triangle is actually the circle of the relationship that you wanted to remain close. You want to keep your customers close. You want to always be in contact with them, so you can find out what they want, what are their needs, so you can fulfill their expectation and try to optimize your communication strategy in order to enforce that bond between you and your customers. So the positioning of the brand has to be done correctly, and you do that through the process of brand discovery. That's where you get the brand attitude towards the competition, the market, and the brand personality. And then you have the brand awareness, which is the promise. You do that through communication as well. And then you have the brand response, which is the brand performance delivered through the met expectations of the customers. You want the circle to keep going and going and going, so you can reinforce your position in the market, reinforce the relationship that you have with the customers, and so the customer can be loyal to you and your brand, and it can bring also more customers through recommendations.